Hey everyone, my name's Nick.
And I'm Ray. And today we're going to be talking about Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive. Just general impressions, mind you, and maybe touch on Mistborn. I'm probably going to touch on Mistborn and this general impressions. I've only read books 1 through 3. I'm currently reading book 4, but we're not going to go into the story too much. There may be minor spoilers, I guess.
Yeah,
With like
I'm gonna.
character names. That's about
Okay,
it.
yeah, character
Yeah.
names definitely. I was gonna say I'm gonna kind of keep the spoilers out almost entirely. Mainly because you haven't finished book 4 yet, but
Yeah.
we were talking about it a little bit earlier, and I was like, oh, let's just wait till I'm off work and let's record this because I've read the first 4 books only one time. And this is the only Brandon Sanderson solo work that I've ever read.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I was really extremely impressed by the first 2 books, and I really thoroughly enjoyed the third book. But book 4 had a lot of issues for me. And I know
Yeah.
we were speaking earlier today, like I said, and you said that it was quite disorienting.
Yeah.
So let me hear a little bit of that.
So, a bit of a background. Wheel of Time. We talked about it on the series, obviously. The
Hmm.
final books were written by Brandon Sanderson, and I think he did a well enough job. I don't think anyone
Sure.
else could have done a better job, if you will, that I know of. With that, I enjoyed some of his writing style, so I was like, oh, let's check out his other books, right? And I started with the Mistborn trilogy, which I loved. I mean, they were short-ish compared, right?
I
And it was fun.
Yeah, I haven't read any of the Mistborn, and I
Oh,
would say they compared to what we usually read, they're very short.
Oh
So,
yeah, but it was a fun series, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And then that's right around the time Stormlight 1 hit, and I picked that up, read it, and it was pretty good. It was pretty really good. Then book 2, same thing, kept it going. I was like, dude, this is okay. This is turning into something, and that's when I started delving into Brandon Sanderson. Who's like, I'm gonna make a 42 book universe,
yeah.
and they're all gonna connect with each other somehow. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, hold on. What characters are there that is in multiple books if you keep your eye out?
Hmm.
Wit, for example. It's not a spoiler.
Yep.
But you can find him throughout his other books in different worlds, which is, I thought cool. I thought little things like that are super cool to do in a series. Book 3, phenomenal. I loved it. Honestly, that was my favorite because big fan of Dalinar and specifically how that closes up. But then book 4 hit me, and it had been like a year since I read anything, year and a half since I read those.
Hmm.
And I just immediately was like, wait, who the fuck's this person again? Where the fuck am I? What's going on? Who's this? What's
Yeah.
that? And I was like, and it just didn't keep my attention. So I kind of set it down and started reading some other stuff, but giving it a go still. It's a slow trudge. It feels like Game of Thrones to me right now, book 4.
I've never read Game of Thrones, so
Slow.
I can't speak to that, but I would agree with you. Even so, similarly, this was the first work I read, but similarly, I really loved books 1, 2, and 3. Book 3, I had some issues with the ending.
Yeah.
And then coming into book 4, book 3 to 4, there is a time jump of 1 year, right? So coming in from 3 to 4, having a year gone by and having these characters be in an even worse state, really, I was worn out. I was worn out from these characters being like this.
Yeah.
And I took about maybe 3-month break on the book series.
Yeah.
And I came back, and yeah, the first part, right, the first like maybe quarter of the book, I forced myself to read it. Like
Yeah.
I had to force myself to get through it.
Which you shouldn't want to
Um,
do for books.
and one thing that I think that Brandon Sanderson is maybe not having an issue with, but one thing that he's doing that I don't particularly like is he's really trying, it seems to me, he's really trying to like build his world really quickly. It
Yeah.
seems from the way he wrote books 1 through 3, it seemed like he brought these characters up to a point too quickly, and he artificially is trying to slow it down in book 4.
Yeah.
So
On that,
so
and we can talk about it a little bit. We won't go into
mhm.
details, obviously. But
Yeah, no.
Kaladin, he needs to get uned. He's an edgelord, dude. He's an edgelord, and he's been an edgelord. Like, I mean, you get it, you understand it, right?
Yeah.
Because of what happens. But he just he was like getting better in books 1, 2, and 3, right? It was like on this
Hmm.
upswing, and then book 4 hits, and he's like right back at start, and you're like, dude, I don't want Edgelord Kaladin, man. It's been
Yeah, and this is what I was meaning by he's artificially bringing my favorite book series and both of ours is The Wheel of Time, I believe.
mine's
Um,
Hungry Caterpillar.
oh, okay. My bad. I take it back. That is an extremely good series. But anyone who has read The Wheel of Time knows are slog books where specific characters, right? Perrin, for instance, is stuck for like the course of 3 or 4 books.
Yeah,
His character does not progress whatsoever. And that's what this felt like to me. It felt like Brandon Sanderson wanted to bring in a lot more aspects to this book, to his world building, and he just hurried through 2 of the main characters too quickly. And so he just put them on a break. And it was just so boring to me.
yeah. And then like on our Wheel of Time reviews, we talk about certain characters just not being fun to read compared to
Hmm.
others.
Yep.
One of those ones is Shallan to me,
Hmm.
because you're just like, this could be more interesting. I feel like if there was more to it.
I would definitely agree with that.
That's why I think I like Dalinar so much. He's kind of just he's like, yeah, I was a shithead in my youth, and
Yep.
the shit's happening now, and I guess we're doing it. You know, he's decisive. He
That was my favorite part of book 3 was how Brandon Sanderson brought in. I mean, there was some foreshadowing in book 1 and 2 that there
Yeah.
were issues with Dalinar's past.
Yeah.
And what was so good to me about book 3 is these issues were brought to light and they were for the most part resolved within one
Yeah.
book. It was like, oh,
It was straight up his
it
book.
was yeah, it was great. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, minor spoilery talk, right? This isn't going to give up any story, but this does minor spoilers in my opinion. On the same note, you have Kaladin and Shallan, who over the course of 3 books and then even 4 books, they're dealing with the same exact thing over and over again. After a while, it gets boring.
It's
That's why,
it's kind of human if you think about it. I mean,
of course.
people take forever to fix themselves, right? And in that aspect, they're very human, but they're also the main characters of a story, which are supposed to be a little bit, they're the hero. They're a little bit better at it than
A
the
little
average
more.
person, you know?
I totally agree that in real life, yes, these issues, right, Kaladin with his PTSD, and then Shallan with her multiple personality disorder, or I don't even know what it would be called specifically, right?
LSD.
Whole her whole host of mental disorders.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously in real life, it would take years, if not decades, for a lot of these things to happen.
Yeah.
But reading it gets boring, right? Especially in a big epic fantasy book where you don't expect to be doing that chore.
Yeah.
It's just
Well, that's the whole thing with fantasy that I feel like a lot of the medium right now even has forgotten is that it's fantasy, right? We read it, play it, watch it to escape from normality. And like I have a big issue with this with all the most recent Final Fantasy games, for example. They've been very serious in tone, and they've lost a lot of the silliness that they used to have, like 9 and 7 even. In the 7 remake, it was a serious game when it's kind of a ridiculous game at heart,
Yeah.
And I think it's just a medium issue right now. Everyone's trying to have the new awesome original dark story with Batman and rare, and they're just not having fun. And I'm not saying Brandon Sanderson's doing this more than another, or if he's doing it on purpose or whatnot, but he is writing his characters very humanely, very human-like, if you will, which is
sure.
awesome. However, make him a little bit more godlike for my taste.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think he's pushing it a little too far into reality, for my opinion. And that's one thing as well that I had an issue with in book 4, right? Again, minor spoilers, and I'm not going to talk about it too in depth because I don't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah.
But he does this as well with the magic system and the fabrials, right? He tries so hard to make everything make perfect sense.
I
And
will
it
say
gets
this on that: his magic system's pretty well thought out for sure.
I agree,
Yeah,
but it gets a bit boring in this book, especially with the Fabrials. You know, any with a certain character, any scene with this character is, you know, it's just going to be explanations of Fabrials and how they work for
nice.
reasons. Yeah, and to me, it gets to a point, right? They deal with light a lot in book four, which was awesome. I thought it was super interesting. But again, it just it's almost too much. And this is probably just a personal opinion. It is obviously my opinion, and I'm probably wrong, but that's just how I felt about it.
It's fair. I mean, honestly, all in all, this most of Sanderson's work, I would say, is up there, top tier. He's a
Yeah.
top tier writer, especially with how much he writes.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
like he puts out like 2 books a year, damn near, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
I'm sure I think I sent you the video, right?
yeah,
Or I'm sure you saw it where he just released an extra four books.
yeah, and then you have other
Just-
authors like Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin, who
yeah.
then the
Yeah.
King Killer Chronicles, which I think is a fun series. It's been 2011 the
Hmm.
last book came out. I'm still waiting on book 3. I've been
Yeah.
waiting for it for a lot of
Over 10
years.
years now.
Yeah. Um,
Over a decade.
but no, I think Sanderson's a really good writer. I think he's a top tier world builder. With that, he has some minor issues, I think, with just I don't even know how to describe it, you know? It's like the
Yeah.
writing's good, but
Yep.
there's sometimes it's just a little too one thing or another, and you're like,
Hmm.
you sped this part up and did
Yeah.
this. And he's like, well, there's explanation and stuff. And you're like, cool, I don't care.
Another thing that I'm having,
Make a
or that
primer for that.
yeah. The another thing that I'm having some difficulty with the book, and I know that the Stormlight archive is split. It's like a 10 book series, but split into two parts, right? So
Yes.
books one through five is going to be focusing on obviously the characters that we're with now, and books 6 through 10 are going to be focusing on like a set of new characters.
Hmm.
I believe that's how it is, correct?
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, so with this, he's as if you're reading the series, as you've probably seen, there is like this focusing of flashbacks to the feast, to the treaty with the Parshendi. And man, I'm over it by the time I'm in book four.
Look,
I get
you
it.
know what
We
point of
get it.
view we haven't had yet? We haven't had the butler's point of view. We need
Exactly.
that.
That's yeah, that's what it feels like. And look, there's Brandon Sanderson recently, not recently, I think it was yesterday, at the time of recording this, he released a preview to his prologue, his rough
Yes.
draft prologue for book five.
Mhm.
And again, it goes into this scene. Now, granted, the stuff that it goes over is really cool. There's a lot of really cool additions that he's putting in,
Yeah.
but I'm over the scene. Like I've seen it so many times, at least two or three times each book.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with. I think the books, especially after book 3, I think after book 3 should have been focused completely on the future. Like, because
Hmm.
they kind of handled most of the stuff in the past. I mean, there were still some mysteries to figure out and stuff, but I mean, that could have came along the way. But I mean, who knows? Maybe, dude, I don't even know. Maybe books 1 through, because they have to tie up book 5, right, for this arc
Right.
of characters. I feel like, I mean, I'm only halfway through book 4. I feel like
Yeah.
there's not. I don't think a book and a half is enough to tie up this story arc.
We will speak again when you finish book four.
That's fair. A lot happens in the
I'll say
second
that.
half.
Yes, and Brandon Sanderson is totally known for this, right? His endings. He's very well known for his magic systems, his world building, and his endings, right? He writes good endings. I don't think that's very debatable. That's not a con.
He wrapped up the Wheel of Fucking Time
Yeah,
without being the original author, and that. I mean, come on, that's a
yeah.
world to wrap up.
So on that, we'll talk about it after you finished. But yeah, another issue that I have with book four specifically is it feels like the world is trying to be built way too big. It's weird. It's kind of a slog to me, but then there's also this rush to build the world.
Did you feel that way about the Wheel of Time ever? What world feels bigger, Wheel of Time or this one?
This one, especially in book 4, I will say, obviously we mentioned it in the beginning, the Cosmere, right? He's intending
Yeah,
on having this whatever 42 book
universe. Yeah.
universe, and in book 4 he really starts to bring that in. Other worlds are being brought in,
Yeah, I'm not
and
at that part yet.
I yeah, and I so I don't know. It's not really a spoiler here, right? I'm not going to get into specifics, but he starts to incorporate that into Roshar, right? The
Okay.
Stormlight world, and yeah, it's
You should read Mistborn, by the way.
I yeah, I
It's
will.
it's a quick read and you'll actually super enjoy it.
I
Yeah.
thought I had it in here, but yeah, I will.
But
I
yeah,
started reading it the other day, but I couldn't.
for the Stormlight Archive, though, book one, I think book three is the strongest in my opinion so far.
Hmm.
Book one, I would say, is a number two, and book two, number three, and then book four, way below. I think book four so far is just way worse than the first three.
I would agree with that. Even with having I read the whole thing already, and I would agree with that.
I just like Dallin.
But
He's dope.
he is really cool. Book 3 was not my favorite. Kind of I like them in the order they're in. Honestly, book 1 was my favorite, then 2, and then 3, and then 4 is significantly below those 3.
But yeah, I mean, from what else Brandon Sanderson has, and this is just like we said, it's just a video just kind of talking about let's just Brandon Sanderson's works in general. I haven't read all of it.
Yeah,
I've only read the Mistborn trilogy and then the Stormlight, and then I forget, it was like Atlantis or some shit. It wasn't Atlantis, but
Elantris. I think that was his first book, right?
yeah, that
That
one.
he his first published work, not his first
Yeah, I
book
read
ever
that
written.
forever
But
ago.
yeah, I've never read those ones.
But for fantasy authors, I think he's top right now. I really do. I don't think anyone comes. Well, I think he's number one. Uh, and I would say top three is a position with some heavyweights. I wouldn't put George R. R. Martin up there only because he's taken so
Yeah.
long. So fuck him.
Um,
But like the
I
dudes who
would.
wrote the Malazan Book of the Fallen, I'd put them up there. Steven
Yeah,
Erickson and somebody else. Then I really like Brent Weeks. He puts out a lot of stuff. Not all of it's great,
I
but
don't know who is that. What
he
does he
wrote
write?
this series called The Black Prism.
Oh, okay. You've
And
mentioned that before, but I
yeah,
haven't been able to read that one yet.
there's 5 books in it, and it's actually fun, good. The ending, ugh. But I forgive the ending because it was still fun, you know.
Yeah.
But that's for all live authors that I've read that I can think of
Yeah.
off the top of my head right now. So
I enjoy the Stormlight archive. Like I said, this is my first work of Brandon Sanderson, and I really enjoy it. I hope that book 5 is to my liking, right? Obviously, so many. I've looked up the reviews on like Amazon and Goodreads or whatever, and all 4 books are extremely well received. It seems like
we're
so.
nitpicky.
For my taste, I hope book 5 is something that I enjoy.
Yeah, like I said, I just want to read some more fun dark. There's not a lot of fun dark out there.
Yeah, I feel like that's a difficult balance, but
Oh, for
yes.
sure. But yeah, I mean that's my closing thoughts on it. Brandon Sanderson, great author, great books. Hey, just focus up, bud. Just focus up. Come on, a little less
Yeah.
ADHD on the pages, my guy.
So, everyone,
Right,
thanks for watching.
right, out.